Pine Creek, Tennessee, a small, remote town where rumors spread like wildfire and secrets never sleep. Here, everyone knows each other, and everything from a casual greeting to a strange behavior is scrutinized. In that stifling atmosphere, Michael Ward is the town sheriff, a man everyone trusts, with a calm, authoritative, and stern appearance. But no one suspects that beneath that perfect facade, there is a conflicted mood, a smoldering anger waiting to explode. Rebecca Ward, Michael's childhood wife, was once the perfect piece of his family life. They had 2 teenage children, a stable home, and a life everyone dreamed of. But behind the polite smiles and social support, Michael's marriage was losing its vitality. Rebecca became a distant companion, and their home became a place where Michael felt trapped, where his dreams and desires were being crushed little by little. Although on the surface he is still the model husband, the ideal father, but in his heart Michael is haunted by a sense of loneliness and a longing for a different life, a life where no one can control him. The secret cannot be buried forever in the town of Pine Creek, and Michael knows it. He feels every passing glance, every whisper about his family, every doubtful look every time he passes by. In the eyes of the people of Pine Creek, Michael is a solid statue, but in his mind, cracks have appeared. He knows clearly just one small mistake, just one time letting his emotions take over, everything will be exposed. Pine Creek, where the truth never sleeps, is waiting to pull his secret into the light. How much longer can Michael maintain this perfect appearance? Will anyone discover the dark corners of his personality, the conflicts that tear him apart every day when he faces himself in the mirror? The answer, perhaps, is that it's only a matter of time before it all explodes, plunging this peaceful town into a crisis no one saw coming. Pine Creek, Tennessee, a small town nestled quietly in the woods, is a place where secrets can be revealed even with a whisper. This is also where Sheriff Michael Ward has served for the past 15 years. With a calm and responsible appearance, Michael was once considered a symbol of protection and stability by the community. However, his family life with Rebecca, his wife from high school, was not as perfect as it seemed. With 2 teenage children, the Ward family life became increasingly dull and tired, full of gaps that were difficult to fill. One late night while on patrol, Michael stopped by the only diner that was still lit. There, he met Yasmin, a young Muslim immigrant who had just turned 18 and was working the night shift as a waitress to make a living. Yasmin caught his attention with her youthful looks and independent, calm demeanor, but there was also a sense of loss in her eyes. The two began to talk, a short but unexpected exchange that left a deep impression on Michael. As for Yasmin, she only saw in Michael a trustworthy older man in a strange town. The meetings that followed did not stop at hasty conversations. They gradually became more intimate conversations, as if something secret was brewing that no one but them knew. Michael, who had thought that he had exhausted himself emotionally with his lackluster marriage, now found in Yasmin a new, long-lost sense of life. Yasmin, meanwhile, sensed in Michael something she had never had before, an image of an older, mature man who could help her escape the confinement of her life in Pine Creek. She felt that there was an invisible connection between them that even she herself could not explain. From then on, every time he went on his late-night patrol, Michael would deliberately stop by the diner for some vague reason, just to chat with Yasmin. For the town of Pine Creek, this connection was completely harmless, but Michael's lingering glances and increasingly regular presence at the diner gradually raised more questions than answers. Was this just the curiosity of a man bored with married life? Or was this the beginning of something darker that could overthrow all the reputation Michael had built? Pine Creek, Tennessee is not a place where secrets are kept, but powerful Sheriff Michael Ward ventures deep into the darkness of an affair. Between night patrols, Michael and Yasmin begin to meet secretly at his family's cabin, far from the eyes of the town. The cabin is deep in the woods, an ominous place, as if it hides a dark part of Michael's own soul. It is here that the last boundaries are broken, as the emotional connection turns to physical passion, venturing beyond boundaries they both know are wrong. Each clandestine encounter is an experience of suspense and taboo, each moment hidden in the darkness and stifling air of the cabin. The danger of having to hide from those around them only adds to the allure of the relationship, pushing Michael deeper and deeper into a spiral that becomes increasingly impossible to escape. Yasmin, naive yet full of desire, is also drawn into this dangerous game, not knowing the consequences it will bring. While Michael tries to hide the relationship, the changes in his attitude begin to attract attention. Rebecca, his wife of many years, cannot help but notice the growing distance. She senses something is wrong when Michael comes home later than usual each night, his eyes no longer the familiar warmth, but instead cold and distracted. The abnormality becomes more and more obvious, not only in the late nights but also in everyday conversations. Michael only responds vaguely, sometimes even absent-mindedly. In a small town like Pine Creek, even the smallest changes can be easily noticed, and Rebecca begins to imagine a possibility she never considered before. Has someone else entered her husband's life? This is more than just a fling. The tension is mounting for Michael as he tries to balance two worlds, a seemingly broken family and a taboo love that is slowly taking over. But he doesn't realize that the more he tries to keep his relationship with Yasmin hidden, the more the pieces of the secret are revealed, bit by bit, with Rebecca's every searching glance and every unspoken question. As their feelings deepened, Yasmin could no longer accept the relationship in the shadows. She wanted more, for Michael to step out of the shadows of his old marriage, so that they could both be free to live the life she had always dreamed of. However, Michael understood that this meant giving up his family, his career, and his reputation, a price too great for him to pay. With each passing day, he became increasingly torn between his heavy responsibility to his family and the intense attraction of this forbidden love. The struggle culminated one tense night. Yasmin, her pain suppressed, confronted Michael in the familiar cabin. Her eyes burned with frustration and anger as she forced him to make a choice between his family and her, between duty and love. Michael stood there, confused by Yasmin's pressure, finally admitting the cruel truth. He couldn't leave Rebecca and the two children who had been with him for so many years. The confession was like a knife cutting through all hope in Yasmin. She looked at him, her eyes filled with hurt and disappointment. It felt like her whole world collapsed when she realized she was just part of a cruel joke, a secret that Michael would keep hidden forever, never to be acknowledged. Yasmin left the cabin that night with a broken heart, and Michael, despite his decision, could not escape the obsession of forbidden love that had pushed him into a dead end. In the dark cabin where they had hidden from the eyes of the world, Yasmin let out a word that almost stopped Michael's breath. She was pregnant. The news was like a blow from heaven, tearing apart all the protective walls he had carefully built over the past months. Yasmin, the immigrant girl with deep black eyes, now looked at him no longer as a support, but as a judge, forcing him into the cold corner of truth. No longer a silent love, Yasmin now demanded something Michael could not easily give. She wanted him to leave Rebecca and his family, to do the impossible. Yasmin declared that if he did not choose, she would act on her own, and nothing could stop her from making this secret relationship public. Her cold determination appeared like a noose hanging over his head. Michael felt that his entire life, from his family to his career, was on the brink of collapse. The image of himself in handcuffs, being dragged by the crowd into a hell of judgment and sarcasm, appeared vaguely in his mind. Yasmin stood before him, her eyes unyielding, as if waiting for him to make a decision. The pressure in the room was suffocating, all escape routes seemingly closed. In the tense atmosphere, Michael understood one thing: things were spiraling out of control. This was no longer the furtive adventure he had sought to escape his boring life. Now it had become something that threatened everything he had tried to protect. The darkness of the night closed in on them, and Michael realized, in Yasmin's silence, that the threat was not a choice, it was a sentence waiting to be carried out. The next morning, the news of Yasmin's death hit Pine Creek like a cold shock. Her apartment was cordoned off, police lights flashing across the quiet neighborhood. Yasmin's body was discovered in the living room, once her most cozy space, now the scene of an unspeakable tragedy. Around her were the marks of a violent struggle, Furniture knocked over, mirrors shattered, walls smeared with crimson blood, a grim reminder of her desperate final moments. Michael was one of the first to arrive. As sheriff, he knew he couldn't shirk his responsibility, but as he looked at Yasmin's lifeless body, guilt and fear gripped his heart. He could feel the cracks in the perfect facade he had tried to create. Standing in the middle of the crime scene, panic gradually took over as he caught sight of a small but heavy object, a positive pregnancy test that the forensic staff had carefully placed in the evidence bag. Michael's eyes were glued to the pregnancy test, and beads of sweat began to roll down his forehead. This evidence would not only confirm his relationship with Yasmin, but also unlock the dark secret he had tried so hard to hide. All eyes would now be on him, on the secret dates, on the decision he had been afraid to make, and on the fear that it would all come crashing down. His colleagues, the people of Pine Creek, they would all know the truth. For the first time in his life, Michael felt he had lost the power and control he had once held so proudly. The scene was not only where Yasmin had lost her life, but where everything Michael had and was falling apart before his eyes. The investigation revealed more haunting details than anyone could have predicted. Yasmin's phone was filled with text messages from an unknown, nameless, unidentified number. Each message was a short, sharp threat. Stop before it's too late. You're playing with fire. The haunting permeated every line, the words like an inescapable warning, drowning Yasmin in fear. The investigators couldn't help but wonder who was behind these warnings, and why were they aimed at Yasmin? For Michael, the psychological pressure was like a heavy stone. Every meeting with colleagues, every random question made his heart skip a beat, feeling like he was standing on a fragile wire. His colleagues' eyes began to probe him. Every quiet word made him lose his composure. His reactions were somewhat excessive and unusual. No longer the steady police chief, Michael was now like a panicked prey, chasing the threats in his mind. Michael's insecurities could not be hidden for long. His furtive gestures and restless reactions aroused suspicion. His colleagues began to keep an eye on him. Every step followed, every whisper behind his back. Michael felt everything around him gradually narrowing, like a trap was tightening. His and Yasmin's secret was gradually being revealed. As the investigation unfolded, the name Owen Hart emerged as a haunting piece in the case. As Yasmin's boyfriend, Owen, a working-class man with a history of jealousy and violence, became a prime suspect. Yasmin's secondary phone revealed a string of threatening text messages, sinister and harsh, from an unknown number. You know what I'm capable of. End this now or you'll pay. The messages were enough to paint a different picture of Owen, a boyfriend plagued by frenzied jealousy, willing to do anything to protect his pride and possessions. To Owen, Yasmin was his, and anyone who touched her deserved to be punished. When questioned by the police, Owen denied any wrongdoing, maintaining a calm exterior. However, his conflicted eyes and strained speech only made the investigators more wary. Those who knew Owen knew his dark side, the violent acts, the bitter arguments, the broken relationships. Owen had a terrifying drive and a capacity for outbursts that anyone could recognize. But despite suspicions, no physical evidence actually tied Owen to the crime scene. As the days passed, the pressure of solving the case left the police stumped. They were missing a piece of the puzzle, a tangible trace to piece together this dark story. During questioning, Owen remained defiant, trying to control his anger. But his defiant calm made it impossible for the detectives to ignore. Was this man really hiding a crime, or was it all just jealous shadows? The detectives were faced with a haunting mystery, a man with motive, with reason, but no evidence, an unanswered question in the arduous quest for justice. As the investigation hit a dead end, the detectives suddenly discovered a shocking clue. A series of secret financial transactions from Michael's wife Rebecca Ward's account to Yasmin's. The transfers were regular, the amounts were not small, but they were discreet enough, as if meticulously calculated to avoid detection. This left the detectives with an urgent question. What did Rebecca know about her husband's secret relationship with Yasmin? When summoned, Rebecca arrived at the interrogation room looking tired, trying to keep her composure but unable to hide her tension. Under the sharp gaze of the detectives, The story finally began to unfold. Rebecca had discovered Michael's affair months earlier, and instead of confronting her husband, she had chosen a quiet approach. The payments, Rebecca said, were a desperate attempt to get Yasmin to leave Pine Creek for good, leaving her family intact. But Yasmin never left. Instead, she seemed to cling to Michael even more, forcing him to choose between his family and his secret love. For Rebecca, each passing day brought her deeper into despair, pent-up anger, and unresolved hurt. One fateful night, Rebecca decided she couldn't take it anymore. She entered Yasmin's apartment, her mind filled with dark thoughts. Rebecca confessed in the interrogation room, her voice calm, each word piercing the minds of those listening. When confronted by Yasmin, she couldn't contain her anger. The exchange quickly turned into a fight, and in her fury, Rebecca swung a heavy vase from the table, hitting Yasmin square in the head. "That's when it all ended," she said, her voice trembling but determined. The violent confrontation turned into a nightmare Rebecca never imagined, and Yasmin's death was the end result of months of lies and hatred. Rebecca's confession brought a deadly silence to the interrogation room. The detectives realized that behind the false peace of Pine Creek, there were terrible secrets, enough to destroy the lives of people who seemed perfect. As they left the interrogation room, the detectives understood. The Yasmin case was not only a verdict on Rebecca, but also a terrifying warning about the consequences of betrayal and jealousy in this small town. Rebecca Ward's trial opened with a heavy atmosphere, every eye in the courtroom fixed on the woman who had once been the family icon of Pine Creek. As each piece of evidence was revealed, each detail of the dark story gradually revealed, the entire Pine Creek community began to realize the depth of the crime. The threatening text messages from unknown numbers, the secret transfers from Rebecca's account to Yasmin's, and the final, chilling confession, all of it created a clear picture of Rebecca's motive and her crimes. When the jury sentenced Rebecca to life in prison without parole, the courtroom was almost silent, except for the murmur of gossip mixed with horror. Michael Ward, once a respected sheriff, sat motionless, his face expressionless. His career, his family, and his reputation were now in tatters, all destroyed under the community's suspicious and scornful gaze. Finally, unable to escape reality, Michael was forced to resign, quietly leaving town in disgrace. The repercussions of the case did not stop with Rebecca's sentence. That painful betrayal left a lasting scar on Pine Creek, a once peaceful town where people believed they knew each other. The people of Pine Creek now not only lost a familiar family, but also lost faith in the man who once stood up to protect them. Pine Creek was no longer the same. It was dark and fractured, a town with unforgettable memories of crime, betrayal, and lingering pain that would never heal.